Okay, I know that I'm looking really casual right now, but I'm just so excited about this that I really want to share. We've been mapping out what it is that causes burnout. And there's a kind of general truth advice that I keep hearing, which is like, okay, like I just need more balance. I just need to find more time to rest and self-care. I think the inherent problem I have with finding balance is that balance by nature suggests some kind of sacrifice, like you're taking time away from doing the work. But I'm really starting to realize that it's really about redistribution and prioritization, not balance. When you're trying to get out of a burnout cycle, it doesn't mean you give up productivity. As a matter of fact, what I'm starting to realize is that you can actually have just as much productivity with no sacrifice, if anything, more productivity. And what I mean by that, have you ever noticed that it's the times where you give yourself the most crap for like being productive that you were least productive? Like it's a day where like maybe it's like a weekend where like you have a whole day ahead of you and you're like, okay, I've got this big to-do list of all these things I've been meaning to do. Like I want to write this, I want to create this, I want to go and start this, like whatever that one dream you've had for a long time is. And then you get in your head about it and you start thinking about it and you're like, oh, I gotta do this and I gotta do this. And then you kind of psych yourself out. You add so much emotional stress to yourself that you start thinking, well, okay, well, I'll kind of take a moment and do this other thing. And then as soon as I answer these emails, then I'll get started. Or as soon as I'll do this, and I'll get started. And then before you know it, the whole day is done. And you look back and you like beat yourself up because you realize, oh my God, like I haven't done any of the things that I said I was gonna do, right? I don't think that it's actually more productive to create those stories. I think it really has to come down to not balance, but reprioritization and realizing that what that means is that there's an emotional priority that you can take on. There's a story behind it. There's an ego. There's a fear behind it that you're not addressing before you're trying to jump ahead to it. It has to do with the way we prioritize. So, we've been looking at all these things like biological symptoms, the causes, and the solution, but I really started to realize that it really comes down to a new framework that I just came up with. And the framework I'm calling SHAPE. SHAPE. So you want to get out of your head and get into shape. What does that mean? SHAPE, the S in SHAPE stands for structure. Structure is a plan. It is a plan of action. It can be your quarterly vision. It can be your monthly plans. It could be all those things you put in place that like you can execute. The reason why you want to have structure set up is because when you start going into the story pattern, when you start taking action and you start realizing that your brain is telling you things like, oh, I should be doing this, or I shouldn't be doing this, or I should be doing this, and you start realizing yourself getting into that resistance pattern. Like, yes, by all means, if you have a strong willpower, you can like power through it and like just break through that resistance pattern. But I'm starting to realize that it shouldn't be that difficult. If you're doing what your life's work is, if you're doing what your purpose is calling you to do, it shouldn't be torturous, right? That doesn't make any sense to me. Right? If it's something that is your purpose and your ikigai and your love, it shouldn't be difficult. So structure, not stories. Structures, not stories. Trust the structure. If you set out a plan for yourself, start executing it, but do it in a step-by-step basis. Try not to do the overwhelming idea of like, oh, I need to be this person. I need to become this person to do this. I need to read more book. I need to become this expert before I start this plan. Just start. Just start the structure. Trust the structure. Once you have the structure, build habits. If you don't know yet, I'm a big believer in habits. What are habits? Well, habits are the kind of like regular routine action that you take on a regular basis. And the reason why you want habits is because once you've built up a habit, basically it takes no motivation to get things done. Like you don't really need to motivate yourself to get up in the morning and go brush your teeth. Chances are you already do it automatically because it's just part of your routine. You don't think about it. You wake up in the morning, you get up, you walk to the bathroom, you start putting toothpaste on your toothbrush before you've even really woken up. Right? So these are the habits that we build. And the habits are extremely important because the habits kind of define the chain of actions that we could just rely on when we don't need to burn willpower for it. right? So the best way to build a habit is to build a routine of habits. So chain habits together. Start from one pillar habit that you already have, add to the next one, add to the next one, add to the next one. So for me, for example, one I talk about a lot is building that morning routine. Routine is just a habit. Build that evening routine. Routine is just a habit. Right? Whatever your habit is, make sure to follow through with understanding like habits rely on things like visual cues a lot of times. So if you have a visual cue around you that it can easily tap into. So if you like come home every single day and you have a habit of like eating junk food and like, you know, like drinking things you shouldn't be like drinking alcohol that you shouldn't be drinking. It's not that there's anything wrong with junk food or it's not that there's anything wrong with alcohol. They're tools. They're there to serve a purpose. So I don't want you to give yourself judgment for it, but just ask yourself, is this something that is beneficial for you or no? Is it something that's helping you or not? Right? Because if it's not helping you towards the things that you set as your intention and your vision, and it's pulling you back instead, then that's not a helpful habit. Replace it with a better habit. So have a better visual cue. Take away the snacks, maybe put some fruit on the table. Right? Maybe put your journal on the table because you're still going to have that instinct, that desire to kind of like make yourself feel better. So go to that instead. So build the habits, okay? Build the habits. These are the routines. The next thing to do is action. Generally speaking, when we start getting into our head, when we start overthinking, when we start feeling that kind of drain, we start feeling that kind of fear, easiest way is to take action. And the best way to take action is what I call a 3-second rule. Whenever you start feeling yourself questioning something, if you should be doing something or feeling something, you start feeling that stagnation, just go, okay, I need to take action. 3, 2, 1, stand up. I don't care what you do, get moving. Like start doing jumping jacks. You'll find yourself breaking that pattern, that emotional pattern that you get into. Now, this is a very important thing to keep in mind is that the biggest thing about action is do before you think. Take action before you start thinking. Before you start thinking about exactly what it should be, take small, basic, simple actions, and then suddenly everything else will start generating energy, right? It will start generating energy to propel you towards where you got to go. So it almost doesn't matter. It's kind of like you're starting up the car. You're just getting that ignition started. So once you start moving, then it will guide you to where you got to go, right? So action, 3-second rule. P stands for prioritize. Prioritize is a very important step. I find that, again, I'm not a big believer that everything is about balance because you're never going to achieve perfect balance, are you? But you can achieve priority. The biggest problem I find, especially with entrepreneurs, is they want to attack every single area in their life at once. They want to have better relationships. They want to have better friendships. They want to attack their business. They want to attack their health. So they want to prioritize everything in the top spot. And I'm like, no. Pick one thing that is your main priority in this current time period. And that time period could be this week. It could be this month. It could be today. But pick one thing to prioritize and put 2 other things on the back burner. Drop the next few things. So pick one thing, just one thing. Focus is always better. And realize that prioritization can change very, very quickly. So, in the morning, maybe your priority is on creative work. Great, do creative work. Throw everything else to the wind. Ignore the emails, ignore the administrative stuff, ignore everything else. Like, just dive into creativity. And then later on in the afternoon, prioritize on doing the administrative work. And then in the evening, prioritize on connecting with your family and put away the phone. Put away the work, put away the email. Like close it off, create boundaries. Prioritization is a matter of creating boundaries. It's saying, okay, I'm going to prioritize you. I'm going to put a boundary and I'm going to separate everything else. Everything else does not come up. So prioritization. And then finally, E stands for emotion. Emotion. At the end of the day, motivation is just an emotion. But so is anxiety, right? When you're feeling anxious, it's just an emotion. Sadness, just an emotion. Depression, well, there's a state of being clinically depressed, but a lot of times when we say we're feeling depressed, we're really just feeling sad and maybe some anger, right? These are emotions, and it's okay to have emotions. This is a very important part of it. To avoid burnout, you have to understand, sense, and feel those emotions. A lot of times, people have no problems getting the structure, the habits, the action, the prioritization, and I can't tell you how many people I know, especially the high-functioning ones, who go through these 4, and they burn out. They burn out and they crash. And guess what happens? You are the most important piece of machinery in your entire life, in your business, in your work. What happens when you crash? What happens when you burn out? What happens to your business? right? So take care to notice those emotions. How do you deal with the emotions? Well, first and foremost, don't run away from them. That's not how you do it. Don't escape them. Don't go to the distractions. Don't go to the addictions. You feel them. So you sit down, you go through a journal, and you go through, you identify those things, and you heal it. And you heal the bits and pieces. How do you heal something? Well, you talk to whatever it is that you need to work through. So for example, if you're feeling a sense of anger, well, it's about identifying where it comes from, what you're experiencing, and then maybe, taking it out and facing it, right? Maybe going through some catharsis by punching some pillows, right? If you're feeling sadness, identify it. Inner child work is very, very helpful in this regard. Right? Dealing with the pain, dealing with these emotions. If you're feeling a lot of anxiety because you're holding on to something, let go of it by either writing it out, facing it, confronting it, realizing what it is that's behind it, whether or not there's truth behind it, right? If you want to feel better, a book called Feeling Good is very helpful in this regard. It's called CBT work, right? Take a look at that. I'll talk a little bit more about it some other time. But going through those processes, facing and then resolving those emotional experiences is very important to be had. Right? So again, this is my SHAPE framework. Shape your life, shape your destiny, right? SHAPE, again, is structure, habits, action, prioritization, and then emotion. All 5 have to be done at the same time as part of a greater framework. Now I'm going to create some worksheets. I'm going to create some tools for you to be able to put this into action. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks for watching.